Welcome to Unfiltered, real conversations with creators, tastemakers, movers, and shakers. I'm Kristen Hess of the Artful Gourmet podcast, and this is where we pull back the curtain on creativity, business, and the stories behind the people shaping culture today. So grab a coffee or pour a glass of wine, and let's sit down and talk. This is Unfiltered. Welcome to Unfiltered. I'm Kristen Hess, host, food stylist, photographer, and owner of the Artful Gourmet. Today, our special guest is Marvin, who's spent more than 3 decades immersed in the restaurant and hospitality industry, beginning her career at just 15 years old as a line cook before rising through nearly every operational role to become a managing partner by age 30. Today, she's an internationally respected restaurant leadership consultant, executive coach, speaker, podcast host, and author who helps restaurant owners, hospitality groups, and multi-unit brands build stronger cultures, develop exceptional leaders, and scale their businesses without sacrificing the guest experience that made them successful in the first place. Throughout her career, Kristen has helped open 13 restaurants, guided hospitality companies through growth from 6 locations to 48, and coached hundreds of leaders navigating expansion, operational complexity, and founder burnout. Her experience spans independent restaurants, multi-unit operations, and hospitality concepts, including 7 years helping lead a successful brunch concept with a strong coffee program. She's the author of the Hospitality Leaders Roadmap and Multi-Unit Mastery, and hosts the Restaurant Leadership Podcast, where she shares practical leadership strategies for hospitality professionals around the world. What sets Kristen apart is her belief that great hospitality starts long before a plate reaches the table. Culture, leadership, communication, and people are the invisible ingredients that ultimately shape every memorable dining experience. Today on Unfiltered, we're exploring what happens after creativity turns into a business and how founders can Today on Unfiltered, we're exploring what happens after creativity turns into a business and how founders can continue growing without losing the passion, personality, and purpose that inspired them to begin. Hi, guys. Welcome to Unfiltered. This is the space where we have creatives, chefs, hospitality owners, restaurant owners, and all kinds of fun, creative people in the food space. And today we have a really special guest. Her name is Kristen Marvin, and she is an amazing consultant, restaurant guru, and basically everything you could ever want. She's written a couple of books. She's done speaking. She does coaching for restaurants and hospitality. Kristen started out as a line cook a long time ago in a restaurant and worked her way up to owning a restaurant and managing several restaurants by age 30. Welcome, Kristen. How are you today? I'm so glad to have you here on Unfiltered.
I'm so great. Thank you so much for that very kind intro. It's always, I've told my story a few times, but it's always wild to hear somebody else repeat it back. So thank you so much for that.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about you and where you're from and kind of like how it all started, like when you were working in your restaurant, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So like you said, I started as a line cook at 15. I'm from a small town in Missouri called St. Joseph. And I wanted to start working as quick as I possibly could. I wanted to get out of the house. My parents really encouraged me to work. And I chose my favorite restaurant in town, the one that we always went to, locally owned, a little independent spot. It's still there. It's called Barbosa's, if anybody's ever in St. Joe. It's enchiladas and the best food. But I picked the spot where we used to go celebrate birthdays and good grades on report cards and, have family gatherings. And that was my first taste of the industry. And I think, fast forward, I tried retail for a hot second when I was in high school. That didn't work out well for me. I was incredibly bored.
Yes. I worked at Express and Sibley's and all that stuff too when I was like 16. But
yeah, I was at the Gap and then I was piercing ears and it was just weird. And I decided to get back into restaurants when I moved to Colorado when I graduated high school. And I got a job with Outback Steakhouse. This was in 1999. It was my first taste of serving and bartending, and it just really helped me kind of come out of my shell. Very quickly explore, discover the world of training and amazing systems. Also, some sex, drugs, and rock and roll in the industry as well. And so, coming from a very small town, it was a very eye opening experience for me. But I just fell in love with the hustle and bustle of the industry. Of course, the money that I was making every single night, the opportunities to move up with the company. And so that was really my first kind of taste of working in a chain environment with great systems and great structure. And that really stuck with me throughout my career.
That's awesome.
I wandered up the street about a year and a half later to an incredible property in Colorado Springs called the Broadmoor. So it's a 5-star, 5-diamond resort. And I ended up staying there for 5 years and had the opportunity to open a couple concepts from a management perspective, become a GM at 24, fall flat on my face and make all the mistakes that you make as a first-time manager, favoritism, partying with your staff, all the things. And then, I was given the opportunity to go work in a restaurant, a fine dining restaurant, and open it with a gentleman who became my mentor, who worked for Danny Meyer in New York. And I got to see Setting the Table come to life right before my eyes. And I was such a fan of Danny and still am. And we partnered with a couple master mixologists out of New York. I was studying wine. I mean, I was 24 years old, just in this
That's
world
awesome.
I was like, what is this? So
Yeah. Yeah.
that was incredible for me. And that's really, I think that opportunity at the Broadmoor was absolutely what got me hooked into the industry. And I said, I told myself at that moment, I want to do this for the rest of my life. There is nothing better than creating experiences and having a well-structured business that is successful and an amazing team of people that are all aligned and all working together and just really are invested and care in what we're doing. And the food that we were creating was magical and simple, and the cocktails were perfectly curated for the menu and balanced and also simple. And it was just an incredible time in my life.
That's amazing. Yeah, actually, I actually shot for Daniel in New York. It was for an e-menu company, and it was just one of the restaurants that he had. I think it was on the Upper West Side. And I just remember going in there and being blown away by all the food and just how beautiful it was styled and presented. It's just like an amazing group. So that's amazing training to be, right out of the gate, starting with that type of person, Danny Meyer, as a mentor.
Yeah, incredible.
So looking back, I guess, if you're, looking back on your whole career, what were some of the biggest lessons from climbing the ranks instead of taking shortcuts?
I think for me, really understanding that I had to take my time in every position. And I needed to become an expert. I wanted to become an expert in everything before I moved up. I think there were a couple, the Broadmoor specifically. I was an AGM when I worked in the fine dining restaurant. It was called Summit at the time. I think it's called something else now. I was really gunning for the GM position, and I didn't get it, and I was really, really bitter, and I walked away from that. I ended up moving to Denver, and the story continued. I'm very lucky, and I've worked really hard, and I love everything that I've been able to be a part of. But I think I've spent my years coaching young managers on put your time in.
Yeah.
Be with a space for a year or two. Be in a position for a year or two. See the seasonality of the business. Learn everything you can about that position before you start raising your hand and saying, "I want more. I want more. I want more." And if you
Yes.
do raise your hand and you say you want more, be prepared to listen and accept the advice that's given to you by people that have been in the industry for a while, because they're
Yes.
not intentionally, purposely holding you back.
Yeah.
They really care about the business. They're seeing the big picture, and they know where you will potentially fall down and crack your head open, and where
Right.
where
Right.
you'll be successful. And so I think my pride when I was younger really set me up for success in the long run, and really helped me test my patience
Yep.
going
I
through
mean,
those
you know
ranks.
what? There was a famous saying, I don't know if it was Napoleon Hill or somebody, but they said overnight success takes about 15 years. And you know what? It's right. I think a lot of people see successful people and people that are in high up positions and running businesses and running restaurants, and but they don't realize how much blood, sweat, and tears went into all of the seasons of, starting from the bottom,
Yeah. Yeah.
even as a manager, if you got to pitch in and do the dishes, that's what you do to get it done. Or,
Yeah.
you're doing the expo line, right? I worked in
Yeah.
restaurants too when I was in high school and college, just waiting tables and doing that kind of stuff. But I mean, it's a machine, right? And you don't start out at the top, And my niece, she's so cute. She's like 23 and she's actually in school doing hospitality right now. And she's kind of doing more like events and marketing. But I remember she came to visit me when I was in Texas a couple of years ago. And, I was like, how's school going? And have you thought about what you want to do? La, la, la. And she's like, yeah, I decided I want to be a hotel manager when I graduate. And I'm like, that's great, Lily. But you're probably going to have to start out maybe working at the front desk. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of young people, and I'm not bashing young people, but I think, we're in a day and age where everybody's like, I can do anything and I can get anywhere. And that's great to have that. But I don't think people, I'm Gen X. We worked from, the day I turned 16, I got a job, right? It was at a stupid grocery store doing a cashier job and I hated it. But it was like, you got to go out and you got to start somewhere and work your way up. So, anyway, I think that's a great point, and that was a great answer. And, people need to realize you got to put in the work to get to where you want to be. So.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I have always been really ambitious. I'm an only child, and I've just, I'm very, very driven. And so I set some really audacious goals for myself that I wanted to be a GM by the time I was 24, which is also when I graduated college.
Yeah.
And I wanted, I wanted to go from cocktail server to GM. And I did it, but I didn't do it successfully. And then I wanted to be a manager. I wanted to either be a managing partner or own part of a restaurant or own a restaurant by the time I was 30. And I did those things, but I was so focused on meeting that age and not necessarily making sure that I knew what it took to get ready for that. And those two moments were huge failures for me. And you can't have success without the failure. And so I learned so much from rushing the process. But again, anybody that's listening to this, I think I would recommend, go to your leadership and say, let's work on a development plan to get me from A to Z, and then work the plan. And you can work that plan, and, depending on how large that gap is, you can work that plan as quickly or slowly as you want to, depending on your life and your environment. Right? But it's
and I think there's in hospitality, there's so many, different routes you can go, if you want to get into the wine or get into being a chef or getting into management or, doing marketing or whatever, there's so many opportunities. But, I think first and foremost, having love for food in that business is the key to success. And then you're right, we'll get into what you do and what you offer in a minute, but like really working out a plan and having a career path kind of well worked out and making sure you're hitting all those steps to get to the top wherever it is that you want to go. So let's get into that then. Let's talk a little bit about scaling. Let's say you're a restaurant group, hospitality group, and you've got 6 locations that they're successful, but now you want to get to 48. What are some of the changes inside a company when it starts scaling quickly like that?
Yeah, I have a couple good case studies from my own personal experience, but then we worked with 50 plus clients on this over the years. I saw what it looked like to be a part of us, to be part of a group for 5 years that was independently owned and that had 3 different concepts when I started. And then we opened 5 more completely different concepts in a 5-year time period. I saw what scaling looks like when you don't have a clear vision for your business, when your team is not aligned on where that's going, when you don't look at what your organizational structure, your leadership structure actually needs to be in order to be successful for what the business needs. I saw what it was like to just continue to add concept on top of concept on top of concept and work.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was chaos. And hardly any of those concepts are still open today because of that lack of organization and intention and strategy. Now, the other case study I have was, working with Snooze for 7 years when we were locally owned. We had 6 locations, and then very quickly private equity came in and we grew from 6 to 48 locations in a 7-year time frame because we had the things in place in order to scale at that rate, because we knew exactly what the leadership team looked like. We knew exactly, there was a blueprint for it. We had the vision. We had, yes, of course, we had the money coming in to back, being able to bring on those salaries a little bit early before that growth happened in order to set things up correctly. But everyone was aligned on, okay, this is exactly where we're going. We're going to open 2 to 4 to 5 restaurants a year. Here's the infrastructure that needs to be in place in order to make that happen. And here are the very specific expectations and measurables for every single person's role in leadership, so that they knew what their part was. And they also knew how they were going to be able to benefit from that scalability, the growth opportunities that were available for them to move up, the bonus opportunities that were available for them, the equity that was being offered. So there was a lot of clarity and a lot of communication on what this was going to look like down the road. And it gave people an opportunity to opt in and opt out. And I opted in for a 7-year time frame, and then I opted out. It was interesting during that time frame because when we had 6 locations, we really didn't have a lot of systems in place. There was hardly any tech in the restaurants. We were, it was a brunch concept, and so we were on a wait for 2 or 3 hours on the weekends, and then during the holidays, and we were just doing it with pen and paper and a crayon and a highlighter. It was as simple as
the diner days, right? Writing everything on a.
It was beautiful, and the handwritten notes and all these things.
Yeah.
And what that did was it created so much simplicity, and it helped people stay close to the business when they were waiting. And so we had games and offered water and coffee for people to enhance the wait experience. And then when we introduced tech and we launched an app, people were laying in bed at home, putting their name on the list, and it completely killed the energy and the marketing outside of the restaurants.
Yeah.
And it kept tables open longer because you were texting somebody that was, 10 minutes away in their car or whatever. So there were good things and bad things about some of the systems that we had in place, but understanding, so when you grow as a business, you've got to have visibility over what is actually happening in a day-to-day, right?
Yeah.
And I think, seeing us going through the process of installing and implementing tech in every single aspect of the business, I got really, really good at learning how to roll out successful change, because it is a very important process and a multi-step process. And so we teach that a lot with restaurants, or the restaurant groups we work with, because it's so important to your culture and to your environment on the pace that you roll out new systems and the pace that you roll out change for your company.
Right. Right. I mean, it's that love-hate relationship with technology, right? Like when I first started I used to do graphic design and art direction. And when I went to college, I mean, we didn't even do computers until my senior year of college. I'm not going to say how old I am, but I'm dating myself. It's like, okay, Photoshop's here. Great. And it's a beautiful thing. But at the same time, I think like now everybody does stuff on their phone and everything's so fast, and it's like nobody stops and takes time to like sit down, plan stuff out, draw it out. What's the idea? It's just like boom, 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 right? So technology is a good thing, but then it also sometimes takes away that creativity. Do you do any like marketing plans, or do you work with marketing directors? Like how do you fit into that part of the restaurant rollouts and growth? When it comes to marketing, or are you purely like operational and more strategy?
So our primary focus is around leadership development and helping people when groups come to us and they say, hey, I want to scale, or we're trying and we're having a really hard time keeping people. We are having a hard time finding great talent. We really dive deep into that. Let's talk about what the leadership team needs to look like. What are your core values for your business? Do you have them? If you don't, we'll create them. What is the vision for your company? And then how are you finding people? And we really help through that interview process. Now, we had a client ask us last month. They said, we're trying to drive top line sales. We really want to talk about marketing. And so, okay, we apply those coaching skills to any single aspect of the business. So we had a 2-hour meeting with our marketing team, and same thing. We said, okay, what's the vision for the company? What are you currently doing right now? What is the purpose of marketing? And 9 times out of 10, what we find when we have those conversations is that the experience within the 4 walls is what needs to be fixed first. Their guest experience is falling down. They haven't hired the right people. The training isn't in place. So we really get to the root cause of that. And then we say, okay, the business is great and it's solid. Now we can amplify the message out there, because if you amplify the message on a product that isn't great, then you are just causing more problems for yourself. So because restaurant owners are managing so many different things and wearing so many hats, we really try to add simplicity and structure and stability to the existing things that they have in place versus saying, let's add more and more and more onto your plate that you need to manage, because it just
Yeah,
typically doesn't
absolutely.
work.
Absolutely. Especially if you're managing not just one restaurant, but 60 of them or an
Yeah.
entire group. Many chefs and creatives start businesses because they love creating spreadsheets and staffing schedules. Why does growth often pull founders away from the work that they love?
It's interesting. I was just having this conversation last night with a friend of mine that was visiting, and we were at a restaurant. He's from Dallas, and he was asking me about the Denver scene and what's going on. And I said, we've talked about margins and how the industry is tougher than it's ever been. And he's from outside of the industry, and he said, why do people do this? It's so hard. And I said, they do
Yeah.
it because they love it. Look around at what is happening right now. You've got people, families, and people on dates, people enjoying patios, gorgeous weather outside. They're all talking to each other. They're engaging. They're smiling. They're enjoying amazing food. They're having cocktails. You and I are visiting two people that met on LinkedIn 2 years ago and finally meeting in person. Like, this is where you create memories and
Yeah.
create shared experiences. And so, we were talking about the lifestyle of a restaurant owner and how challenging it is as well. And I said, look, when you've got one location, you're there every single day. You're saying hi to every guest. You're checking in on the tables. You're getting that
Hmm.
instant gratification if things are good or bad. You're able to fix the problems in real time when you know the answer to everything when you're there. And when you start to open number two and you pull yourself away, everything changes, because 9 times out of
Yeah.
10, the systems aren't there for the team to be able to answer those questions or
Right.
find those answers on their own. And Danny Meyer came to speak to us a few months ago in Denver, and he told this story perfectly. He said, he opened Gramercy Tavern, and then he waited 10 years to open Union Square, or I'm sorry, vice versa. And so he said he was afraid of scaling because he thought that scaling was going to mean failure. And when he switched his mindset to realize that scaling meant providing opportunities for your people to grow and to develop, he
Hmm.
decided to buy into opening another restaurant. But when he did that and he stepped away from Union Square after 10 years, the standards started to slip. And he said, I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah.
I've been with these people shoulder to shoulder for 10 years. They should know what I expect. And he said, what I didn't realize was that I was never using my words.
Mm.
He hadn't created those systems and taught and developed people to say, here's exactly what I expect. He was just assuming that people were watching him and that they would do the
Yeah.
same thing, right? Leading by example. So
Right.
that is a very common pitfall that we see a lot as owners start to scale. They take their eye off one restaurant for a second, those standards start to slip, and then they have to go back in and create those systems. So we work really hard with the owners that we work with on getting everything out of their head, getting it down on paper, which sounds painful. And then they think, oh, it's so, yeah, I can't teach people this. I can't teach people, we hear this all the time. I can't teach people hospitality. I can't teach people creativity. And it's like,
Yeah.
but we can distill all that down into things that are going to work really well for them, because I'm a big fan of checklists. I always have been. Checklists reduce errors by, I think, 70%,
Hmm.
because it just streamlines the process, which gives people more space and time to be creative, to build relationships, to be more engaged, and continue learning and developing.
Right. Yeah. And as a restaurant owner, business owner, people can't read your mind, what your vision is and what your
Right.
brain is thinking and what you're wanting for this beautiful thing that you're creating and have made. So, yeah, I think it is important to, really distill what is this business all about? What are our values? I used to work in branding at Interbrand, and we did this for huge companies like Microsoft, John Deere, Velasas, Victoria's Secret. That was one of the first things we would do, is have a workshop with the company. What is the business all about? What do we say? What do we stand for? All those things. It's really kind of like your marketing plan in a way, or your business plan, and then turning that into your brand voice and what you stand for, and then turning creative out from there. But, it all goes back to the essence of that owner's vision for the business. And
Yeah.
making sure that the whole company is in line with that,
Totally.
so that it's, even the hostess is speaking in the way that people would expect to be spoken to when they come into this restaurant, because they know it's a Danny Meyer restaurant.
Yeah, and a lot of
So,
owners sit down in the beginning of their business when they're writing their business plan or they're building their concept. They put all this stuff down on paper, but
mhm.
then they don't do anything with it. And so we help
Yeah,
pull it back up, bring it back to life, and then it becomes the accountability for us lovely visionaries like me that have shiny objects coming all the time. It's like,
yeah,
nope. how does this fit with the company vision? And so we
Mm.
find that a lot with owners as well. It's an accountability tool for their leadership, for the visionary, for the owner, for the leadership team, but for the entire organization as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. All right. So let's talk a little bit about burnout. So burnout is almost always expected in hospitality. Why has it become so common? And how do leaders know they're approaching burnout before it's too late?
Yeah, this one's pretty personal for me. I burnt out in my career. When I was in the process of scaling, I think I've opened 13 restaurants in the span of my career, and I loved it so much. I loved every opening. I loved seeing the behind the scenes work that we were doing come to life.
Mm.
Loved being able to tell the teams that there were opportunities to grow. The problem for me was when we stopped growing in our region in Colorado for a second, I didn't know what to do. I had 6 restaurants to manage and I didn't know what to do. I felt
Yeah.
it was completely different. It was a different pace. I had a hard time going from GM to regional because I was trying to be a super GM. We didn't have development plans in place for regionals at that time because it was a newer position for the company. And it was really a struggle to figure out where to be. And I was finding myself running around trying to put out fires instead of being more intentional and proactive with the business. And that didn't feel good. And so I had stopped investing in myself personally and professionally. And I started drinking uh, heavy more than I had before, heavier. I didn't realize at the time, but I know now. I was trying to numb that I was unhappy, that I had completely become disconnected from the passion that I had in this business and why I got into it in the first place, of the creativity and the
Yeah.
autonomy and the empowerment that I had. And I started to lose my voice. It started to happen as the company grew because we were, in the beginning of that relationship, we were all partners in the business as GMs. And then all of a sudden we had a department of 30 or 40 people telling us what the initiatives were to run it, and
Yeah.
that's just what happens when you grow. I understand why, but being in that environment, feeling it was very different. And so I had an internal struggle with my core values and
Mm.
I started to lose my voice, but I also started to push back really hard. And that didn't bode well for the relationship that I had with my boss at the time. And so I lost my confidence for a while. I lost trust in the organization. I stopped believing in where we were going
Mm.
and started to believe that it was really all about money, and it didn't feel good. And so I left that company right before the pandemic and jumped on with another company that was locally owned that was also scaling. And I just realized growing the same concept over and over and over again was not rewarding for me. It just felt like I
Yeah.
was going through the motions. And so anyway, I stopped drinking. I hired a coach. I had completely lost my passion for the industry, but deep down I loved it so much. And I was like, I know that I want to stay connected with this industry, but I don't know that I want to be in operations anymore. I don't know what that looks like. And so
Hmm.
my third session with a coach, I had this huge moment of insight that this one-on-one work that I had been doing with managers all these years was my favorite part of the business, truly listening to them and helping them with their
Yeah.
problems, right, and coaching. And so that's how I decided to start my coaching company years ago. But for me, the signs of burnout were not wanting to get out of bed in the morning and not being excited to go to work. And that was very unlike
Yeah,
me.
you've hit the wall when you get to that point. Like, I
Yeah.
remember one of my first jobs out of college, I was working in advertising, but I was doing sales, and it was like direct sales. And after 4 years, I was completely burned out. And there'd be days where I was like, I just want to go home and lay in my bed. I don't want to do this anymore, and it's like when you hit that wall, you need to kind of plan and, like you said, sort of figure out, what do I really love doing and how can I turn this into a career? You know what I'm saying? Like, that I really, really love and that I'm really, really good at. Cause when it doesn't feel like work. If you really love what you're doing
Right.
and you can't wait to get to work,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
sort of, what happened with me. I was working in advertising in New York and Atlanta, whatever. But, the jobs in New York paid a lot of money, but I was doing more project management and I'm a creative. So it just
Mhm.
wasn't the right fit. But I took the job to move to New York and I, got there.
Yeah.
But after 5 or 6 years, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I found the whole food and the cooking and then the blogging and all that. And I got out of my burnout too, because every job I was at, I was like, I don't want to do this. So I think it's important for anybody, and that's what I love about this podcast, The Unfiltered, is it applies to everyone, not just
Mhm.
restaurant owners. You
Yeah.
could be a plumber, you could be a CEO, you could be a restaurant owner, you could be a writer, whatever you are.
Yeah.
But it's finding your passion and what you love and getting over that slump and that burnout, I think
Yeah.
is really, really important. And,
It's,
the restaurant business, it's easy to get burned out. So that was why I was talking about that.
it is. And I
You
think,
know,
yeah, I mean, the long hours and the mental and physical exhaustion that comes with the industry, you
yeah,
have to be connected. You've got to be passionate about what you're doing. Otherwise, those hard days are just going to feel really, really hard. And I think, I was
yeah.
40 years old when I hit this rut and I didn't know what my core values were. And I didn't understand, when you're burnt out, it's so hard to even have the energy to want or go, I'm going to look for something else. I know exactly what I want to do.
Yeah,
It just doesn't exist in that moment. And so
yeah,
I had to understand, with my coach helped me understand what my core values were for the first time in my life at 40 years old. And we started to make a list, and he was like, which ones are showing up for you and which ones weren't? And the one that was not showing up for me was freedom.
yeah,
That voice again that I talked about earlier, the ability
yeah,
to identify a problem and create a system that worked best for the company, that was what I lost. And so as soon as I decided to start my business, boy, that light switch turned on for me. Like I
yeah,
was back at the Broadmoor at 24,
yeah,
learning about wine and cocktails and fine dining and
yeah,
taking care of the team. And it was so empowering and rewarding, and I felt like I was on top of the world.
yeah. I agree. Same thing. My last full-time job when I was in New York was working on craft foods at a big social media digital agency. Great job. But at a certain point, it was like we were hiring food stylists, photographers to shoot all the food for the craft homepage and all their videos. I'm like, this is what I want to be doing. So I
Mm.
finally quit. I'm like, I had been building my blog and clients and all that on the side for a couple of years. But when I finally jumped ship and I'm like, you know what? I'm doing this. I don't even have any clients yet, but I'm doing this. And, within 6 months, I had my first cookbook shoot and then things just started rolling. And of course, I was in New York, so it was easy to get clients there. But, you know, from then till now, I've gone back to full-time jobs at least 3 times. And I'm like, what am I doing? This is not what I want to be doing. So
Yeah.
I'm back to freelancing again. You get pulled back in when you
Yeah.
know it's right for you. And, I think maybe for restaurant and business owners that, have not just one restaurant, but a million and they're overwhelmed. Like, how do you help them when it comes to like staffing and delegating? I think for me, it's hard to delegate, right? You want to do everything yourself, but at a certain point, you need to be hiring staff and people to help you
Yeah.
to grow and to scale like
Yeah.
what you do. So how do
Yeah.
you help them with that?
We had this conversation this week. We had to have some really high flying coaching with one of our clients who's got a couple of extraordinarily successful concepts. And the owner, who's the CEO, had admitted for the first time with us they were completely burnt out.
Mm,
And their leadership team was on the call while this discussion was happening. And we really dug deep into what was going on. But because this owner was so burnt out, they were avoiding going into the spaces. They were
yeah.
avoiding. And the problem was they were the key to operations. And we said to them, you haven't given yourself permission to step out of operations. And these teams need you. And we've been
Hmm.
working with them for months to find a regional to be able to come in to oversee operations. And now they're positioning themselves where they've got this amazing candidate. And now it's preparation time to set this person up for success. And this concept had come to us and said, look, we've never been successful finding an external manager and we can't develop people internally. We're really just having a hard time. So, us helping find that candidate was the first big hurdle that we had to overcome. But then it's also setting the team up for success. And we had to have a really hard conversation with the owner. We know what you want your role to be, and we're going to work towards that. But right now, you have to focus your time and energy for a short amount of time on setting this person up for success if this is truly what you want, because this is the biggest roadblock. And so it's really about us clearly identifying what are the roles of responsibilities that the company needs, and then looking at the people that are currently there going, do you have the right people? Do they need to be developed? Do they need to be replaced? And then let's help get that team in place. And sometimes that takes us a year to do that. And then in year 2 with our clients, then we start moving the needle on the operational things and the business things that need, and
Yeah.
those SOPs that need to be put into place in order for them to scale.
So I know you said you do one-on-one coaching, but
Mhm.
you also have workshops, right? Do you want to talk about those two things a little bit?
Yeah, we do leadership workshops. We love doing leadership workshops for restaurant groups. We also do group coaching for restaurant owners that want to build a business that runs without them. So that's a really fun program that we have. We also have a newer program, which I feel like is fitting to bring up because you and I were just talking about finding our passion and doing our own things. But We
Yeah.
also have a program where we teach former restaurant owners and operators how to transition out of ops and start their own consulting businesses on the side. This has been
Nice.
an incredible journey for us. And so we help them get really clear on what their vision is, where their niche is, and then how to go find the exact clients that they want to work for and how to go make consistent money for the rest of their lives. Because I think when you come out of the business, you know you're an expert, you feel good about it, but then you start trying to explain that to somebody else. And then imposter syndrome shows up and you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And you forget that you've been in the business for 20 or 30 years. And all you see is, oh, I'm just starting a consulting business for the first time. I'm brand new at this, So
Yeah.
we help
Yeah.
people design the new lives that they want to live.
Now, are those workshops virtual or are they in person? Do you go to them? Do they come to you? Is it all online?
The majority of
Both?
everything that we do is virtual because we work with people all over
Okay.
the world, which is really great.
Okay.
There are certain ones
Awesome.
that we do in person, mostly in the Denver area, but it's virtual. And we love in person. Of course, the connection is amazing.
Yeah.
We love virtual though, because it forces us to be in a distraction free place where we are just able to be fully present with each other. Those external environmental factors of being at a
Yeah.
restaurant, having the vendors come in, deliveries are coming in, construction guys, maintenance guys coming in to fix something.
Yeah.
We strip all that stuff away and we're just able to really set aside space for people to be really, really strategic and slow down, which is what we need
Yeah.
so much in this business.
That's great. And that's one of the beauties of technology, right? Is anytime, any place. And you can work with people all over the world. So that's amazing. Now, I know you have a couple of books out. Do you want to tell us the names of those and where they can find those and what they're about?
Sure, yeah. So our website is columbinehospitality.com. And so the books are there. My first book was really a memoir. It's called The Hospitality Leaders Roadmap. It is over 30 leadership lessons that I've learned, the good,
Mm.
the bad, and the ugly over the time that I've spent in operations. And that was my way of just getting back, and also was just very therapeutic for me to put things on paper that I'd learned. I'm very hard on myself, and I don't take time to slow down and celebrate the achievement that I've accomplished in my career. And so that book was an opportunity for me to do that and give back. Multi-Unit Mastery is the second book, and these are on Amazon as well. But I spent 3 years coaching independent restaurant owners and operators and realized that there were all common threads that were missing, that they all needed in order to scale. And so
Mm.
built those tools over time with all those clients and then said, you know what, this is something that's bigger, that needs to be amplified message wise, that can really help the industry as a whole. And so that's where multi-unit mastery came from. And so it helps businesses scale with clarity and confidence.
Yeah, awesome. And you guys, I'm going to link everything in the show notes below after this podcast is done. So you'll be able to find her website and her Facebook, Instagram, books, all that good stuff. So, all right. So, last question before I'm going to ask you a couple little lightning round questions too that are more
Okay.
fun. But
Okay.
last question. What habits do you think have helped you stay passionate about what you do after decades in the industry? And is there anything that you've learned that you want our listeners to know today?
Yeah, my morning routine is just a non-negotiable for me, making sure that I am filling my cup
Mm.
and giving myself energy and clarity before I even step into the world. It is so important. I get up in the morning, I give myself about 3 hours before I even turn the world on, work
Yeah,
out, I eat breakfast, I walk the dogs, I journal, I set an
awesome.
intention for what I want to accomplish that day, exercise, and that completely helps me get rid of any stress, any
Yeah,
tension, and helps me be fully present for everybody that I'm going to see that day.
that's awesome. Yeah, me too. And I love my coffee and my matcha smoothies and my turmeric and all my vitamins and all that good stuff. And I'm not even a huge breakfast person, but one thing I love is low carb toast, just because I don't eat a ton of bread. But like, I just did a shoot for Galvani ricotta, and I'm not plugging them purposely. I just love their ricotta cheese. There was a double cream ricotta that we were using for these smoothies that we were making for a video. But anyway, I brought some home because we had extra. I put a little bit of ricotta cheese on my toast. Drizzle some extra virgin olive oil, a little bit of garlic powder, red pepper flakes, maybe some like extra little seasonings or whatever, and some chives. Oh my God, it's so good. Like, it's just as good as avocado toast. And
Sounds
it's
delicious.
super. I've just been eating that lately, and my coffee, and I'll do a little smoothie. I'm the same way though. I get up at like 5:36 in the morning. And honestly, it's like I need to go through my email. I need my coffee. I need at least an hour or two
Yeah.
before I even want to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
Yeah, and burnout, same thing. I think we were talking about that a little bit, keeping your passion. If you're losing passion with what you're doing, then find something else. It could be in the same industry, right? But like what I'm doing is the same advertising marketing, but it's food. And it's not, I didn't want to be a chef in a restaurant. I wanted to do advertising, but food. So, you find a way to pivot and make it work for you. And like I said, if you wake up and you're excited about your day, it doesn't feel like work because you love what you do. And I think that's the number one thing, is having that passion and finding ways to not be burned out and keep going and keep it moving. Okay, so I'm going to do a little lightning round, just a couple of minute questions. These are going to be fun.
Okay.
Number one, coffee or wine?
Coffee. I quit drinking 5 years ago.
Okay, that's true.
Definitely coffee.
Maybe, 10 years ago it would have been wine, but today it's coffee.
Yeah, 10 years ago it was all the wine and all the tequila I could find, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I know. I don't drink as much either. I mean, I love my wine, but I have my coffee every day, so I agree. What's always in your refrigerator?
My gosh, it's just a protein mountain in there. So cottage cheese, deli turkey, ground turkey, egg whites, Greek yogurt. Yeah.
Yum.
Fruits,
sounds
vegetables.
delicious.
Yeah.
Right on. And of course, fruits and vegetables are like really bad to be eating right now, but okay, you can buy frozen berries at the, grocery store for now, right?
Yeah, in my smoothie.
They make really
morning.
good smoothies.
Yep, 100%.
Okay, what's the favorite restaurant you've ever visited and why?
My gosh. It is hard to narrow down one. I will say I took a road trip in May to Santa Fe down to Market Steer Steakhouse, which is one of our clients. We've been working with them for a while, but we hadn't met them in person yet. And one of the things I loved about working with the Broadmoor was that it was built in 1918. And so there was a story behind every single nook and cranny and corner. And when I got to Market Steer, they had built the restaurant. It's been in business for a while, but they moved locations and built out a new spot 2 years ago. And they gave me a tour of the space, and every level of detail and intention around the leather straps on the chairs, to the lighting, to the artwork that you could actually buy in the restaurant if you loved it, to the menus and the menu design. I mean, everything, the recipes, grandma's spices and some of the recipes.
I love it.
Everything had a story. And I did that tour before I sat down, and then the owner surprised me and had dinner with me. And it was mind blowing. I expected to be dining alone. And it was just an extraordinary experience. So that,
oh my God,
one of the best I've had in a while.
The Broadmoor or the second one you mentioned?
The Market Steer Steakhouse is
Market Steer Steakhouse.
Yeah, in Santa Fe. Anybody listening,
I have never been to Santa
Fe,
but I need to go.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I definitely want to go. My sister just moved back to Phoenix, and I'm like, I'll come visit you. We could go check out Santa Fe for a weekend.
Yeah.
All the art and the history and all that good stuff. So,
absolutely.
One word to define hospitality.
Service.
Yeah. I mean, service, and that could be in all different ways, right? From, I don't know, tell us a little more about that. Like, what does service mean to you?
I mean, service to each other as coworkers, service to the community and giving back, service to the farmers that we support to get the food. So, same thing on the beverage side, service to the guest, of course. It's an innate part of who we are as human beings. We have a desire to serve other people. And I think for me, that's the word that really, really comes to top of mind when you ask for that question. So, yeah.
I agree. I mean, it's all about the way, like people say they don't remember like what you said or did, but they remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And I think that applies to any brand or business as well, right?
100%.
If you walk into a restaurant and like you were just describing that one place and how you just were like blown away by the details and how it felt and how you were treated. That's what it's all about. And it applies to any business, but especially hospitality business. So anyway, I know we're running out of a time here, but I have really enjoyed our conversation. And I'm going to, just encourage anybody that's watching, if you have additional questions, I'm going to put her website, her email. You can email me, start a chat, whatever, comments on the podcast here, and we can have a conversation and talk more. But I really enjoyed our time, and I really appreciate you being on Unfiltered today. And I look forward to hopefully reading some more of your books and listening to your podcast and all that good stuff. So
thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, Kristen. Well, we will talk soon, and thanks again.
Thanks.
All right. Bye. So this was such a thoughtful conversation today, and I hope you guys really enjoyed it as much as I did. I love that today's discussion reminds us that hospitality isn't simply about serving incredible food and wine and drinks and all that stuff. It's actually about creating experiences, building trust, developing people, and leading with intention, having a strategy. As creatives, it's easy to believe that success is measured by what's on the plate or what people see on social media. But as Kristen shared today, the strongest brands are built behind the scenes through leadership, culture, and a commitment to people. You can find Kristen's books, podcasts, consulting services, her website, all her social media links. They're all in the show notes below, as well as mine. So feel free to reach out. I would love, and she would love, to hear from you. And if you are a restaurant owner, hospitality leader, or a founder, entrepreneur looking to build a stronger team, a healthier culture, and a business that grows without losing its soul, I highly encourage you to connect with Kristen and explore her work, her books, podcasts, and consulting services. If you'd like to see more behind-the-scenes content, exclusive interviews, recipes, cooking videos, and essays, please visit The Artful Gourmet online at the blog. You can subscribe to our Substack newsletter, visit us on social media at Artful Gourmet and The Artful Gourmet on YouTube. All the links are below in the show notes. So until next time, stay curious, keep creating, and never stop telling your story. I'm Kristen Hess, and this is Unfiltered. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much for joining me on Unfiltered today, part of the Artful Gourmet podcast. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love it if you'd share it with a friend, leave a rating or review, and make sure you're following the podcast so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. Your support helps these conversations reach more listeners who are passionate about creativity, culture, and meaningful work. I'm Kristen Hess, and I'll see you next time for another great conversation right here on Unfiltered on the Artful Gourmet podcast. And remember, stay curious, stay creative, and keep living life a little unfiltered.